Welcome, everyone, to the American Prepping Academy. My name is JJ Johnson, and today we're going to be talking about Disaster Preparedness 101, why it's important and what it is. So I initially prepared this lesson for the Wyoming Department of Homeland Security, and I just wanted to share this lesson with you guys as well on Patreon. So this is just a quick slide on me. Again, like I said, I was going to present this to a group of people before all the COVID-19 broke out. A little bit about me and all that kind of stuff. Started out as a U.S. Air Force SEER instructor at Fairchild Air Force Base. I was class 9702. Then I cross-trained over into be a special agent with the Office of Special Investigations, and I've been doing that for about 20 years now. During that time, I've worked in counterintelligence, counterespionage, the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force, Anti-Terrorism Specialty Team, and worked in financial crimes at the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. And I've also done criminal investigations and worked nuclear convoy operations, which is what I'm presently doing. I've deployed 5 times to the Middle East to various developing and or collapsed countries, both in the Middle East and Southeast Asia. I've also traveled to India and South America as well. And, you guys know I have a YouTube channel with about 800 videos or so on there on survival and preparedness. And I've been a lifelong prepper and been teaching this stuff since about 2011. So with that, today we are going to talk about, do disasters happen that often? And we're going to look at the 9 basic needs of modern life. How much food do you need? How much water do you need? Protection from the elements, health and medical, security, power and heat generation, communication, travel, tools, and administration. So here's the thing. Disasters do happen quite frequently all around the country. Generally speaking, they're regional in nature. So, we've got tornadoes, get about 1,000 tornadoes per year on average. Here in the state of Wyoming, we get about 12. And floods, we get about 75,000 people that get driven from their homes by floods each year. And that causes more than $2 billion in damage. We get generally 16 major ice storms per year. Again, that's major ice storms. 11 major blizzards, and 1,319,500 fires per year. Now that does include residential fires and forest fires and all those kinds of things. Then of course we've got terrorist attacks, earthquakes, civil unrest, and you can all probably familiar with the COVID-19 or coronavirus or SARS-CoV-2. Whatever you prefer to call it. And so, these things do happen on a regular basis. It's part of our life. And so that's why it's important for us to be prepared for these things. Looking at some common personal life disasters, job loss and layoffs, that's a huge thing right now, especially with this COVID-19 stuff. Long-term medical issues, financial issues, bankruptcy. Again, that's probably coming down the pipe here at some point as well for some folks. Homelessness, foreclosure, marital issues, divorce, car wrecks, breakdowns, and just accidents. Stuff happens. And so we've got to be ready for this stuff. And that is what prepping is all about. So with that, let's talk about the 9 basic needs of modern life. This is a list of things that I've kind of adopted from the 8 basic needs that we talked about in the SEER school. And, I've tried to make it as applicable as possible to, prepping and just a normal person who's living a suburban lifestyle and, that kind of thing. So, we all need sustenance, right? We need food and water. We all need protection from the elements. And that's, first line of defense is clothing. And then we've got shelter. Most of us, that's going to be our house, but we may need other kinds of shelter depending on what we're doing at the time. And then we've got health and medical, and then this includes emotional health, physical health, as well as spiritual health. All of these things are very, very important, and we can't really discount any of them. Then we've got security. home security, self-defense. Maybe you're going to include martial arts in there, non-lethal weapons, lethal weapons. I'm going to take a look at some of those, just talk about that a bit. And then we've got power and heat generation. That's talking about, making electricity, maybe batteries, potentially rechargeable batteries, and then heat, and the ability to heat your home. What happens when the furnace quits? What are you going to do? And then we've got fire. If we're out in the wilderness, we've got to be able to build fire. So the next one is communication. With communication, you need to be able to gather information from other people and the outside world, and that's why that's an important category. Next thing is travel. You have to be able to move from one destination to another if required. Just saying that you're going to bug in and stay at your house no matter what is not really a very practical option. And the next one is tools. Tools are force multipliers that enable quick and efficient task completion. And in the prepping world, there are lots of tools that make things much, much easier. And then lastly, and maybe most importantly, is admin. Finances, will, life insurance, emergency binder, important documents, all those kinds of things. And we'll get into those when we get into each section. So, how much food do you need? Now, this is just a generalized recommendation of trying to get someone just started out the gate. If you can add to this number, then that is all the better. Especially in times like this, it's a very good idea to have considerable amount of food on hand. Okay, so you need to plan to have enough food for each person of the home for 30 days. And you want that to be able to be held in reserve. That's not the food that you're currently eating. You need to have this additional 30 days in there, and that is likely going to get you through 99% of disasters. Again, we just happen to be in one where it would be nice to have a little more than that. All right, so you need to plan for at least 3,000 calories per person per day. So, that's going to put you at about 90,000 calories per month, or 360,000 calories for a family of 4. So option 1 is store the foods that you currently eat. As you can see the picture here, this is a pantry of just some shelving units, filled up with some food. This is a great way to do it. You can put a couple of shelves in the basement and just start filling those shelves. That's a wonderful way to go about it. You can buy in bulk, and you can rotate that stuff through if you buy stuff that you normally eat, which is a good idea. That's one of the lessons that I've learned during this COVID-19 thing is it is very handy to have the food that you like to eat on hand. If there are shortages and stuff like that, you don't have to do without, or you don't have to break into your other food. Now, option 2 is you can purchase prepackaged, dehydrated, or freeze-dried foods that have a 25 to 30 year shelf life. These are good options, but for short-term regional disasters, you want to have that stuff, but you don't want to have to break into it. You want to be able to hold that back a little bit, and that kind of goes the same with option 3. Purchasing bulk foods such as rice, wheat, oats, corn, beans, etc., and store those in Mylar bags and 5-gallon buckets, and these are also going to get a good 25 to 30 year shelf life. Now, if you can get the gallon size Mylar bags instead of the 5-gallon size, then that works out even better when you do have to break that open. Now, personally, I think the best option is to do a combination of all 3 of these things from above. Maintain a very full pantry, and you want to try to maintain at least 100,000 calories in your pantry at all times, if not more. Then you want to go ahead and purchase at least one pre-made 30-day bucket per each person in the family. Now, if you figure $100 per bucket, it might be kind of hard to find them that cheap right now, but if you look on sale in normal times, you should be able to find that. You take that times 4, and they will each feed one person for about 2 weeks. That's going to be approximately 150,000 calories for 4 buckets. Now, even though they say they're a 30-day bucket, you need to understand that is, their serving sizes are pretty small, and that's why I say they generally go about 2 weeks. And the next thing you want to do is you want to put up at least 50 pounds of white rice. That's going to give you 82,750 calories, and 50 pounds of pinto beans, which would give you about 79,400 calories. So for around $100, that's going to feed a family of 4 for about 2 weeks. That'll give you 162,150 calories. So if you combine all this stuff together, you're going to have a little over a month's worth of food, and you're going to be well on your way towards taking care of the majority of likely disasters, regional disasters, weather disasters, personal disasters and stuff like that. And then as a goal, you want to go ahead and try to increase that with time as you move on through your prepping journey. Okay, so how much water do we need? Water is honestly the most problematic for most preppers. The reason I say that is because storing water is bulky and a lot of people don't have space for it. And let's just go through the list here and I think you'll see what I'm talking about. So traditional wisdom has said that 1 gallon per person per day is sufficient in times of crisis. But I don't think that's actually adequate. Is it enough to keep you alive? Yes. If you were just surviving and not having to worry about cooking or drinking or hand washing or cleaning dishes or bathing or toilet flushing or anything like that, then it would be fine. But if you're trying to maintain your residence and still live in your home and have a quasi-normal lifestyle during the disaster, then you need to have more than that. So you're going to want to have at least a half gallon per day for cooking. And this is just, we're figuring for, it's kind of a family of 4. Somewhere in there. Then you're going to need to at least have 1 gallon per day to drink, 1 gallon per day for face and hand washing, 1 gallon per day for cleaning dishes, 2.5 gallons per day for bathing, and 3 gallons a day for toilet flushing. Now, you should prepare for being able to use about 8 gallons per person per day. So for a family of 4 for 2 weeks, that would mean having about 448 gallons in storage. Now, this is a lot, and I'm very well aware that that is a lot. But again, this is if you're trying to maintain a similar style life to what you currently maintain with the tap working. At a minimum, you want to at least try to go with 4 gallons per day if you can. And so, for a family of 4 for 2 weeks, that would mean having about 224 gallons in storage. And I think that's a little bit more realistic for most people. So like I said, the hard part about this is storage. And, you just have to figure what your situation is. Now, if you have a water source that's readily available on your property, or you've got a well and an ability to power that well, if the utilities are not working, or water's not coming out of city water, or something along those lines, then you're going to be able to store a lot less, and you just need to make sure that you have a way to get to the water and to transport it back to your house. So it's really up to you, but when you start looking at actual consumption, you'll see that water is a big deal, and it's a hard problem to tackle, so you need to start thinking about how you're going to do that. Okay, protection from the elements. As I mentioned earlier, the first line of defense from the environment is clothing. Having heavy-duty clothing that's made for outdoor use is hugely important during disaster situations, especially situations where you're having to get out and clean up storm damage and all those kinds of things, and be out in the elements. Then this is important. Now, your home is typically your primary shelter, and it likely will be in most situations. However, it's good to be prepared to be able to repair the home in the event of an extreme weather situation. Some good supplies to keep on hand are extra sheets of plywood and large tarps that could be used to cover holes in roofs or walls should they become damaged. If necessary to leave your home, it's important to have temporary shelter options available. Some of these options include backpacking tents, nylon cabin tents, canvas wall tents, or even alternative home site, such as a vacation home or what preppers call a bug-out location. Now, the key point within this section is that regardless of the weather, you have to be able to create a microclimate around you that will help you support your 98.6 degree body temperature. That is what protection from the elements is all about. Okay, health and medical. Emotional health is a very, very critical item. When you've got the added stress from disasters going on here, it's important to be able to maintain that will to survive. And keeping a positive mental attitude is one of the most valuable tools to get you through any situation. And I mean that. Regardless of tools and knowledge and all those kinds of things, if you've got the will to survive, if you've got the drive to get through it and to figure it out, then you're probably going to be able to do that. Now, physical health is also a key component here, but physical health is not about being the buff gym guy. It's about functional fitness. Can you get out there and do a lot of work all day long, go to bed, sleep for a couple hours, and get up and do it again repeatedly for several days or weeks on end? That's functional fitness. That's what we're talking about. You don't have to look like a bodybuilder, like I said, but there is a lot of work to be done out here, and so you got to be able to be functional. Sanitation is also a sub-element of being able to maintain a healthy body. So make sure that you are planning for the ability to clean up all your human waste, because this is a critically important factor, and it can lead to a lot of different diseases and those kinds of things. And so you have to be able to get rid of human waste. All right. In the physical health there, we're also going to throw in that category, your first aid kits and your trauma kits and those kinds of things. We'll get more into those in later lessons. Now, spiritual health. This is a highly varied topic and means a lot of different things for different people. But there is an old saying that says that there's no atheists in foxholes. And while that may not always be accurate, there does seem to be a tendency towards having a spiritual relationship with a higher power during times of crisis, and it can be helpful for many people. So, during disasters, you do want to kind of plan for being able to connect with your creator or whatever it is that you think is a higher power. Okay, so with security, in times of crisis, there is a common and predictable pattern of increased amounts of violent crimes. Desperate people frequently resort to desperate measures, and you need to be prepared to defend yourself and your family from those desperate people. Home security alarms, security cameras, lighting, landscape features, secure doors and windows, walls, fencing, etc. Those all help you address the 4 Ds of home security: deter, detect, delay, and defend. We talked about that in another lesson here on Patreon. Self-defense, basic hand-to-hand and martial arts in disciplines that practice one-on-one sparring. I think this is really crucial. You really need to consider different kinds of self-defense. They're great physical fitness, they're great mental fitness, and it'll just help you become a better warrior in case you need to defend your family. I recommend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, or boxing, but really any martial art is fine as long as it gives you one-on-one sparring on a regular basis, with a good degree of contact, so that you feel what it's like to be hit, you know how to hit, and what it's like interacting with another person like that. There's really just no substitution for it. Okay, so the next thing is non-lethal weapons. There's many situations that can be resolved without having to resort to lethal violence. If you have the ability to utilize non-lethal options, you should definitely use them in many cases. Some of these examples are going to include expandable batons, tasers, pepper spray, those kinds of things. And then you've got the lethal weapons, right? We're talking about firearms here. These are the ultimate equalizer in self-defense is the firearm. If properly utilized and if the user has been properly trained, notice that's bolded, firearms are an excellent tool for self-defense. I recommend using commonly available calibers so that ammunition is easy to get and affordable. Basic firearms that should be owned by every prepper at a minimum is a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, and you could carry that for your everyday carry weapon, a shotgun for home defense, an AR-15 or AK-47 or similar style rifle for community defense, a .22 long rifle for training and small game acquisition, and a scoped bolt-action rifle for large game acquisition. Again, these are an integral part in being able to protect your family. All right, so with power and heat generation. Power and heat generation are typically provided by utility companies, and for the most part, they do a good job of keeping us plugged in and totally warm. However, they are not the most reliable, and the infrastructure is old and outdated and has many vulnerabilities. These are quite easy to exploit. I recommend, for starting this topic out here, I recommend having a dual fuel generator personally. These generators will run off of both propane and gasoline. Propane has the benefit that it's shelf stable for a very long period, where gas will only last about 2 years in optimal conditions. Typically, you would be looking to have a generator that is both 120 and 240 volts with at least 10,000 kilowatts to be able to run most of the items in your home. Now, you may not be able to run things like electric heaters and electric stoves or electric dryers, but you should be able to run most of the lights and the other appliances in the home, refrigerators and freezers and those kinds of things. All right, now transfer switch. This is a really, really great item to have. A transfer switch is a physical disconnect that will allow you to disconnect your home from the power grid. This is an excellent safety option that will allow you to run all or part of your home with a generator without having to run a ton of extension cords all over the house. It'll also keep the linemen safe from if you accidentally backfeed the power lines. So this is a look at a transfer box here, and they're just a great item to have. Solar panels. Solar systems offer great long-term renewable energy sources. It's quiet, and it'll provide you power for years without having to purchase or store large amounts of fuel. So these are great options. These systems can be permanent additions to your home or property, and they can be smaller, lighter, portable systems that can be set up if a situation arises as well. So it really just depends on which you want to go with, a permanent one or a portable setup. Solar generators are small portable systems that provide small amounts of power, but they can continually be charged throughout the day as you're using them. They'll often provide enough power to run a small refrigerator, a pellet stove, charge your laptops, run small LED lights, or charge cell phones multiple times. Now, heat generation is part of this, and propane heaters are a great way to heat your home in an emergency. The one thing that you want to make sure of is that it's rated for indoor use. Many propane heaters are not rated for indoor use, and you need to make sure you verify that from the manufacturer or on the manufacturer's packaging before using it in your home. Be careful not to use be careful not to use propane heaters that are not rated for indoor use, because they'll produce carbon monoxide and they could kill you and your family. Indoor propane heaters should be used in accordance with the manufacturer's directions and set up in an area where they will not be knocked over. Okay, so kerosene heaters, these are also an excellent emergency heat source as long as they're used as directed. These heaters take a little more maintenance and a little more finesse to run properly, but they have been used for years and they will do just fine. Just make sure you keep a few extra wicks on hand and learn how to properly adjust the flame. Now, within this section, we also have fire and the ability to make fire when you're outside. So keeping some good supplies on hand, some good man-made tinders and those kind of things is important as well. All right, now communication. Communication, is important because humans are social people, and we have a psychological need to speak with other people. This need is amplified in an emergency situation. Being able to gather intelligence from other people is an important aspect of our ability to survive and organize efficiently. Long-range communications. These are going to be shortwave radios, ham radios. These tools are going to allow you to gather information from hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Then we've got short-range communications, AM/FM radios, CB radios, these kinds of things. These are tools that will allow you to gather information from, say, tens to hundreds of miles, depending on atmospheric conditions. Then you've got team communications. Now, these can be the FRS, Family Radio Service, or the GMRS or MERS, and that's General Mobile Radio Service, or the, Multi-Use Radio Service. And these are handheld radios that are used for communication with you or your family, your group, or your team. And they're usually going to be less than 2 miles in distance or something along those lines. And next we have intelligence network communications. This communication may be the most critically important in an emergency situation. The information is what can be gathered from people you know and have developed relationships with over many years. These people are typically people who are either in geographically important positions or who are in key positions in society who are well placed to have the information that you need. And we talked about this a little bit in the SHTF intelligence lesson that we put out on Patreon last week. Okay, travel. You got to be able to get from point A to point B. In most disaster situations, many people will want to stay home and hunker down. That is the preferred option, as long as it's safe to do so. However, there could be situations that could force you to leave your home, so it's important that you have multiple options available to leave and multiple potential destinations as well. Not only, you got to know where you're going to go. Okay, vehicles. Our daily driver vehicles can be a great option, especially those that are equipped with four-wheel drive and a large storage capacity. Pickup trucks and larger SUVs are optimal for most situations. You always want to leave with as much gear and supplies as possible. Most pickup trucks will get about 12 miles a gallon. We'll say that as an average because some get even less and some get a little bit better, but we're going to say somewhere in 12 miles. So if you're carrying a heavy load, then and you got a 25-gallon tank, then that should get you roughly 300 miles before having to refuel. ATVs and UTVs. These are another alternative to vehicles, and maybe the roadways are blocked up and you can't use pickups, so you have to go with something alternative. A small ATV or UTV can make excellent ways to be able to cover a lot of ground quickly, and they have the added benefit of being able to move cross-country quite rapidly as well. The downside is that you won't be able to haul as much gear or supplies unless you pair them with a small utility trailer. An ATV or UTV will get an average of about 30 miles per gallon if carrying a heavy load. And so if you've got a 3-gallon tank, you can expect to go about 90 miles before you have to refuel. Dirt bikes and e-bikes. Dirt bikes and electric bikes are good ways to be able to cover a lot of ground quickly as well, and with relatively little effort. A dirt bike is superior at traveling across country, while an electric bike is great at navigating city streets almost silently. Both are limited in range because carrying heavy loads is quite cumbersome in most cases, unless they're outfitted with special racks or bags. The range of an electric bike loaded is about 40 miles in a day if you carry a way to recharge the battery at least once. So the average distance for a dirt bike carrying a heavy load is going to be about 80 miles per gallon. So if you've got a 2-gallon tank, then you're probably going to go about 160 miles before you have to refuel. Bicycles. More than 100 years old, but still very efficient at covering great distances using only human power. Bikes can be outfitted with racks and bags to make hauling bigger loads easier. You can also get small trailers that can be loaded as well. You just need to be in good enough shape to be able to power the bike while hauling the load. If you haven't done that, you might want to practice it a little bit before going out and doing it on game day. The average speed of a bicycle will be about 10 miles per hour if you're carrying a heavy load. So if you ride for 8 hours straight, you'll be able to cover about 80 miles in a day. Leather personnel carriers, or boots, as we called them in SEER school. Hoofing it should be the last resort. You can walk a long ways, but it'll take a long time. On average, flat terrain, while carrying a heavy pack, most people will walk at about 3 miles per hour. That's about a 20-minute per mile pace. So if you're in good enough shape to walk for about 10 hours a day, then you'll only be able to cover about 30 miles. What will your destination be? Where are you going? As I mentioned earlier, you don't just want to just hop in your car and go. You got to know where you're going. Maybe it'll be a family or friend's house in an area that is not affected by a disaster. Maybe it'll be a hotel a couple hours from your town, or maybe you've got a bug out location pre-established and already stocked up. A vacation home at the lake, perhaps. Knowing where you're going and how you're going to get there, and how you'll need to survive when you get there is a critically important question. Just packing up and heading for the mountains is not a great answer unless you have significant experience and training to be able to live outdoors for extended periods. Okay, tools. Tools are force multipliers that help you to efficiently complete your task. A wide variety of tools can be very helpful in disaster situations, and having a basic complement of tools for each category listed below could be a great addition to your preps. Okay, so woodworking and carpentry tools, metalworking and blacksmithing, automotive and mechanical, home and automotive electrical, yard and garden, firewood cutting tools, masonry and concrete tools, home repair and construction tools, livestock and fencing tools, tactical and firearm related tools, and plumbing tools as well. There's lots of different kinds of tools out there, but these things will be important because you won't just be able to go to the store necessarily and buy whatever you need in a bad situation. So you might have to be able to repair things. That's why you want to have lots of different kinds of tools on hand. Okay, administration. Now, while this section is not the most exciting, it very well could be the most important. It is critical that you make sure that you have the items below squared away and in place. Make sure to store the original paperwork in a safe place. Also, have copies in your emergency binder and scan them, and have digital copies on a USB thumb drive and a copy stored in a secure cloud as well. You want to make sure you've got your home ownership or lease papers, the title, deed, the lease itself, HUD-1s, etc. And that's just to be able to, prove ownership of your home. You want to have your will and last testament in place. Sometimes people die in disasters. Medical or health directives, in case somebody gets injured and they're unconscious. You want to know what their desires are. Life insurance policies, health insurance policies, and your homeowner insurance policies. You might also want to have a copy of your vehicle insurance policy and or vehicle policy cards. You want to have your 401k, your thrift savings plan, or your IRA paperwork, your investment accounts, and those kind of things so that you know where they are, how to access them, and all that stuff. Then you also want to have passports and copies of other identification, driver's licenses, and those kinds of things. Birth certificates, marriage licenses, at least 3 years of tax returns, and combinations to any of your safes, just in case you forget while you're under stress. Okay, so that has been Disaster Preparedness 101. We talked a little bit about, do disasters happen that often? What are some common personal life, disasters? And then we looked at the 9 basic needs of modern life in detail. How much food do you need? How much water? Protection from the elements, health and medical, security, power and heat generation, communication, travel, tools, and administration. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, you can contact me at American Prepping Academy at protonmail.com, or just stick them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to live 6 P's. Proper prior preparation prevents poor performance. Stay safe, guys.